Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to our webinar today. My name is Roxy Moser, and I am the Director of Immigration Services for Visa Staffing Partners and Valley Medical Staffing. Today, we're going to have a webinar to talk about all the immigration policies that are at play, have recently been announced, etc. Today, before we get started, and with me, I have our speakers. Thank you, Michael Conley, Managing Partner of Visa Staffing Partners and CEO of Valley Medical Staffing. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Roxy. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks. And Mike Hammond, our expert attorney at Corporate Immigration Partners. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. So I'll just jump right in. We got a lot to cover. Mike Hammond, you're going to end up speaking to a lot of this. Of course, there's a lot to cover. But folks, before we get going, if you have any questions or thoughts or concerns, certainly enter those in the chat wherever you are streaming from. We'd also love to know if you are currently onshore and doing maybe an F1 visa to an adjustment of status for Eb-3, or if you're joining us from overseas and seeking a consular processed Eb-3. We are going to be talking about both of those types of visas today and what some of these immigration policies and how they might be affected. As usual, for those who don't know, we want to introduce who we are. We're Valley Medical Staffing. We started in 2003 with Visa Staffing Partners joining in 2006. We work with international nurses from all over the globe. We do sponsor Eb-3, the green card or permanent residency, but we also work with TNs, E3s, etc. So if you have a question or anyone that you might know who's interested in something like that, do send them our way. We just got our Joint Commission Gold Seal of Approval reapproved as of this week for both our companies. We're very proud about that. And of course, we are a certified ethical healthcare recruiter as per True Merit, or formerly CGFNS, the Alliance for Ethical International Recruitment. I introduced these fine fellows. Again, they will be here available throughout the entire webinar, and they'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. And we'll get going now. Today, we're going to talk about those proclamations like the travel ban and the immigration pause. Certainly, after that, we'll have Mike Hammond and Mike Conley give us any sort of like strategy for navigating your particular immigration circumstances. We'll look at timelines for the current status of timelines, or at least the estimates of them. And as usual, we'll cover the Visa Bulletin. As the February Visa Bulletin. As of this morning, I'm not sure the new one has been released for March. And time permitting, we'd love to go over some opportunities that we have going for Visa and Valley. Okay, so let's get started with Mike. Can you tell us a little bit about the travel bans? On the screen, I wanted to show everyone just the countries that are listed on the full partial ban, which is on the left side, and the partial travel ban on the right side. Certainly it's probably small to see. If you're watching this video back at a different time, you could stop it and pause it and look. But as we go forward, Mike Hammond, can you tell us what does that exactly mean?
Sure. So first of all, if we kind of flip back to that chart just for a second. Yeah.
Yep.
So total, we have 39 countries that are covered under the travel ban. And for our purposes, for this call today, we're only focused on immigrant visas. So these are individuals who you're offshore and you're going through an Eb-3 I-140 and you're waiting for a consulate interview. If that's your case and you're on one of these two lists, then right now that's a problem for you. You are prohibited from finishing your process and coming in for a green card. That process is that the fact that you're on this list, it's going to be relooked at every 6 months. That's what we've been told by the White House. There are virtually no exceptions. There's some very unusual kinds of exceptions to them. But basically, if you're overseas, and again, this is fairly complicated because there's a lot of lists, a lot of things to keep straight, but this travel ban list applies to people overseas. Now, they took it an extra step that says if you're on this list and you're in the US, we're going to stop processing any benefits, which means that you're not going to get a I-140 processed, even if you premium it. You're not going to get a 485 processed. You're not going to get a 765 or an EAD application or an H1 or any type of benefit processed. So you are simply on hold in whatever you are right now if you're in the US. So the travel ban in these 39 countries affects people overseas and people in the US. Okay, so now we can flip screens. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can still, let's just go through some of these questions because I think some of them are really good. Number two, can you still get sponsored if you're on the list? So let's pick out a country. You're from Tanzania. I picked that country out because I visited there last year. So if you're from Tanzania and you've never been filed before, you see you're on this travel ban list, can you still get an I-140 filed for you? And the answer is yes. You can still have an I-140 filed. You'll still get a priority date. Your case will simply sit. Okay, which to some degree might be no big deal because right now, a new I-140 that I'm filing today isn't going to get processed for 20, 22 months anyway. The retrogression is backed up to 2023 for people from Tanzania, which means I can't take any action for a couple years anyway. Hopefully by then the travel ban is lifted. So I think there is some hope for individuals on this list, at least certain countries on this list, that you can still move forward in your case. I think I've already covered the implications for visa petitions already in motion. We're telling you, if you are overseas and you have an interview scheduled, don't go. Rather you have a canceled interview that we can potentially revive later than a denial, which is what they were doing. So for people who showed up that first week thinking maybe they'll put me on hold or something, no, they just denied you, which means likely if the ban gets lifted, we're going to have a whole new filing for you, kind of a thing. So that's cases in motion. Cases in the US are just not being processed. If you have a valid green card in your hand, there's no effect on you. You're already a green card holder. Item 5, if you're already in the US in any other status, in my opinion, you can say, well, it looks like I might be able to travel if I have an H-1B visa. Well, maybe. You have an I-131 advanced parole, maybe you can travel and get back in. Maybe you can't. I think you need to talk to your attorney, myself, or whoever is handling your case to ask specific questions for you. And it better be a really good reason. It better not be like, well, you know what, I really haven't, been to Jamaica for a while and I want to see what the beaches look like. They look like the beaches everywhere else. So just kind of stay put. Okay, next slide.
Okay, so before I go though, I wanted to ask you, is there any other questions you're hearing from people about the travel ban or the full or the partial travel ban that we might need to address before we move on?
Well, I think the most common thing I get are individuals who have dual citizenship. And so maybe their country, one of their countries is on the list. Maybe that's where they were born, but now they're a citizen of another country. And they're looking, does that ban affect me? And the answer is it's not supposed to. We are honestly getting mixed reactions though. We had an individual just last week who was born in Iran and is now a citizen of Canada, who had, I'm going to say no problem, but they kept her for about 3.5 hours at Pearson Airport before they decided she was okay to come in. We have, however, had a person who was I believe Nigerian, but who has a French passport, who had an immigrant visa green card interview at the consulate in Paris 2 weeks ago, who got put in what they call 221G because the consular officer said they weren't really sure that that exception applied to them. I think it'll get resolved, but it hasn't been resolved as of, well, yesterday. So it's one thing to read that, yes, you are in the clear, you are fine. It's the practicality of it. I think you need to be prepared for questions and potential delays. Now, it does matter what consulate you go to. We've been told that if you are, back to my example of someone who was from Nigeria and also a French citizen, we were told that if they would have gone to Nigeria, they would have not even gotten an interview. They would have just been denied. But because they were going to a consulate in Paris, they were at least going to be considered. So those are probably the next things I'm hearing, the most common question about.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's move on to the other proclamation of today's webinar, which was just from last month in January of 2026, the immigration pause, or sometimes known as the visa freeze. Again, the countries are very small to read, but there are 75 on there, right, Mike?
Yeah, and I think we got better news here. These are not a ban. You will not be denied. If you are from Fiji, for example, and you have an interview for an immigrant visa at your consulate, you will not be denied when you go for your visa. Your case is simply going to be put on hold for them to do further vetting. Now, how long is this hold going to last? We don't know. You know, I haven't seen anyone come through yet, but it's only been a few weeks. So it doesn't surprise me that no one has come through yet. I think we may not hear things for a little while. Keep in mind that this list of 75 countries does not apply to anyone in the US, whereas the travel ban list, the 39 countries, does apply to the US applicants. The 75 countries that are on the pause does not. So that is overseas only, immigrant visas. Now, if you have a 485 pending and you are from one of those 75 countries, even though it's not stated, I certainly expect there to be additional vetting on your 485 case. And I expect that you will likely get an interview, personal interview, and you can expect your case to take longer, but there is no official pause on any processing of a benefit. You can get an EAD issued, you can get your I-140 approved, you can get a 485 approved if you get to that particular stage. So the 75 country list is not as onerous as the ban or the partial ban list. So I think it's important to know which list you're on.
Okay, so let's start with go to number 2 here. Can I start sponsorship if on the list of the immigration pause, either overseas or as an adjustment of status?
Absolutely, and you will get a priority date. You'll get a receipt notice, and this we know for a fact because we have filed cases since the 75 list came out, and we have gotten receipts on individuals from those countries.
Okay. Well, let's go a little bit deeper for those who maybe are living onshore, say on an F1, and they get an I-140 approved. Can they file their I-485, I-765?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and there
if
shouldn't be
they're
any
only
issue.
on the list of 75, then they can have their EAD processed. If they're on the ban list, they cannot have their EAD processed, which means they need to stay on whatever status they're on, whether it's an F1, H1, H4, whatever it happens to be, your asylum, EAD, whatever it is, you need to make sure you stay on that because you are not getting a work card through the 485 process.
And that is, again, for those on the travel ban, not the immigration
the 39
pause.
countries, not the 75 countries.
So
That's
if
right.
you're a 39 travel ban country, you will not be able to get your 485 or your EAD pushed through. So you need to remain in status while you're in the US.
That is correct.
And of course, with the immigration pause, folks, you still will need to maintain your status, but your I-485 765 will be going through process.
That is correct. That's right. They will
Okay.
be. Yep.
Okay. But let's go back to a overseas consular process on the immigration pause. We can file the I-140. Will it, assuming this is in play for a number of years, what will happen to that visa petition, Mike?
It will continue. The I-140 will get processed. Where the pause will happen, if it's still in effect, is 3 years from now when you are going for your interview, for your immigrant visa interview. But you should go through the I-140 like normal, the NVC like normal, DQ'd, schedule for your interview. All of that should be like normal. It should only come into play when you are actually at the consulate.
Okay. Lots to think about there. It really does have to do with the country of birth and where your visa petition is filed for, correct?
Yes.
Which brings us to the other thing I'm hearing a lot, which is this dual nationality issue. If you're on the pause list, how does that affect a case?
You're still on the pause list. You're not exempted from that because you're a dual national. You are exempted, in my opinion, if you're on the ban list and you're a dual national of a country that's not on the ban list. But the pause list, you're not, because the pause is simply an extra vetting. We're going to pay more attention to you. We're going to run some extra checks. We're going to check your social media more carefully than we are with someone else.
Okay. This is not a question on the slide, but just one I'm seeing out there. Does the pause or any of these immigration proclamations like the travel ban or the pause affect anything to do with OPT or CPT that you're aware of?
It does not. Okay. However, I think if you are someone who is having to use the USCIS, for example, if you are, and I've not had this come up yet, but this is just my opinion as to how it will happen. If you are on OPT and you are eligible for a STEM OPT, I do not believe, and you're on the ban list, not on the 75 pause, but on the 39 ban, I do not think your STEM OPT will be granted.
Okay. So
because
some
the STEM OPT goes outside of the school and gets processed at the USCIS, where CPT does not. It never goes to the USCIS. It's only processed by the school on an I-20.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for that insight, Mike. Let's see. Regarding the pause or the visa freeze, are there any other topics that have come up in your end that we didn't cover yet that you'd like to mention?
Well, I think one of the things that might be interesting for people to do is to go to the White House site where they have announced the ban, and they've got every country broken down as to why their justification for the ban. And you'll notice that a lot of the things listed there have absolutely nothing to do with immigration. This White House is a very transactional White House. There are at least a couple countries listed because they will not accept deportees easily and arrange for their transportation, okay? Which has nothing to do with security or you or anything else in your process. So presumably, if that country decides, hey, we will arrange for transportation, then they may move off the list, because historically that is how this White House is operated, is very transactional. I want A, I've got control over B, I'm going to withhold B from you until A gets resolved. So I do expect there to be some fluidity in this list. I expect people to get added to the list, people to come off the list. They set their time frame at 6 months. It wouldn't surprise me if there's people who are taken off earlier or added on earlier. And that would not surprise me at all. So this is definitely a fluid situation that we're going to have to keep track of and monitor very, very carefully.
Sure, and we'll do our best at Vima Valley to be posting those kind of changes if they do come along and when they come along. Yeah, it is very fluid. Things seem to change a lot and very frequently at this time. So it's always a good idea, especially if you're working with us or your other immigration attorney, just to touch base if you have any questions or concerns about where you're from. Let's go. Well, before
I got a question for Mike
I-
first, if you don't mind.
thank you.
There's one question I've heard it a lot is we've had some young people who are graduating with their bachelor's degree and have filed for OPT. Does the ban or the pause or anything have to do with anything with their OPT, or should that just go through slowly?
If they're on the 75 list, it has no effect. If they're on the 39 list, I do not think they will get their OPT EAD card issued. I think they should look at, if you're graduating in May and it's still in effect, I think you should look at not expecting to get your OPT EAD, but plan on going and enrolling in a master's program and potentially getting CPT right away. But I don't think you're going to get your OPT.
Okay, so CPT could still be a route for them, but the OPT, if you're on the ban or partial ban list,
yes, if you're on the
you
39,
you got to adjust the way you're looking at getting started.
correct. That's right. That's what I think. Now, I'm hoping we obviously have another couple months before, May grads. I think most people, May is the first month we see some grads for this new year. And most of the individuals, I have not yet seen a person who was a December grad who's been blocked by this, because most of them had their applications already in. So I haven't seen that. I also think your school is someone that is worth talking to, your foreign student office at your school, to see if they have had any communication from the USCIS about what's going to actually happen to their students. Almost all schools are part of an organization called NAFSA, National Association of Foreign Student Advisors, and they have a lot of communication directly with the USCIS on things like OPT, CPT, STEM OPT, etc. And that organization usually does a great job of getting communication from the USCIS on matters that will affect their students. So I would encourage you to speak to your student advisor, your FSO or DSO, whatever they call them at your school, to see if they've got some insight as to what might happen. And then keep in mind, the ban list, in theory, should get looked at again in May, because that'll be our 6-month mark. So maybe we get some relief.
Hopefully, yes. So to the question from DKJ232, thank you, Mike, for bringing up the topic. I see there's 2 comments from you. I believe we covered both, which have to do with OPT if you are on the ban 39 country travel ban list. It sounds like, Mike, what you're suggesting is, of course, get in touch with your DSO, but also consider immediately entering a master's program or other program to keep your visa status. You may not be authorized to work right away, because you can't achieve OPT. Okay, great.
I think now's a good time, since we've talked everything so far negative, if you're on the 39 list or the 75 list.
What's the good news, Mike?
The good news. Well, actually, there's 2 people. One good news we already covered is that if you're not in the process yet, you can still file and get a priority date. I think that's good news.
Yes.
But here's the other thing that's good news. Okay. It's only good news for anybody who's not on the 39 list. Okay. But those 39 countries, according to the Department of State data, made up in 2024 38% of all immigrant visas issued. Now, immigrant visas makes up both family and employment based, but 38% is a really big number. came from those 39 countries. Of that 38%, approximately 25% are employment-based country cases. Okay, here's what that means for everyone else that's not one of those 39 countries, is that we're likely to see faster visa movement because there's less people taking up the visas. Because we have 38% less people getting visas, which means in theory, we should have 38% more visas. And that would be in effect for the rest of this fiscal year. And as it relates to family-based cases, that all gets calculated in October. And we may have some carryover, some spillover from the family side to the employment side. So if you are from the Philippines, for example, you may not want to jump up and down and cheer out loud because it's not nice to the 39 people. But in your own house with your shades closed, it might be fair to jump up and down and cheer because your priority date and availability is likely going to be faster. There is some of us that believe they baked that in a little bit for last month. I know we're going to talk about the Visa Bulletin here in a little bit, but it moved forward a little faster than what everybody expected. And a lot of people think that's already been taken into consideration. Could we see that again? Maybe. So I think that is good news for everybody who's not in one of the 39 countries, is your processing time may be significantly faster than what we thought 3 months ago.
So if a person is not on the travel ban 39 list, but they are on the immigration pause list, their case may still have some benefit if this scenario unfolds, but also with increased scrutiny over their processing?
That's correct. That's right. Because they'll get an interview faster. In theory, their priority date becomes current faster. They get an interview faster. And then they start the delay. They start the hold faster than they otherwise would have. Yeah.
Okay, that's great news well, it's a bittersweet news, I would say.
Okay.
Yes, wouldn't you say? Okay, so Mike Conley, did you have any other questions or things to add that you've come across when you're speaking to nurses about any of these issues?
I'm looking at the comments and I just feel so bad for this one person. She says, "What's the good news for the 39 ban list?" And I just don't know if there's any good news for somebody on that ban list. Mike,
No.
Do you think there's any good news for somebody on the ban list?
No, other than the fact that in theory, it's going to be looked at again every 6 months.
And that they can file a petition.
Right. If you're not already in the process,
Get in the
then
process.
I think
Get in the
you could
process.
almost say that the 39 ban list is fairly neutral. Because by the time your priority date becomes current, we're going to have a new king. And they may not even want to be a king. They may want to think that this whole democracy and congressional stuff works. And the rules could get changed again. But on its surface, as we sit here today, particularly if you're someone who's here in the US and you've already gone through your OPT, you've been waiting for your priority date to become current, and then your priority date became current. You're expecting to file your 45, which you can still do, but then get an EAD card, and now you can't get an EAD card. I don't think you can spend that in any way that makes it seem good. It's not.
Yeah. Perseverance is definitely part of the game right now.
But I think what the important thing that Mike says is if you don't get in line, you're not in line. And even though your country might be on the ban list or partial ban list, we're filing cases for people and you'll get a priority date. If you don't have a case filed and you don't have a priority date, that just means that you're further back in the line. And because it is taking so long to get through the immigration process anyways, and as Mike said, there might be a new king, it might not delay your case that much. But if you're not in line, you don't have a case. So
Right.
That's what I would say that. There's another question that for me is important because we're talking to a lot of people in this situation right now. This young person is an F1 Nigerian student that graduated in December, and she applied for her OPT last October, and she upgraded it to premium processing in December, but she hasn't heard anything. Is she not going to get her OPT because of her situation? And should she go right into a CPT program?
Yeah, I would do two things. First of all, I don't know off the top of my head whether the premium upgrade for OPT is 15 days, 30 days, or 60 days. I don't know. If it's 60, then you're still within that range. If it's 15 and you applied in December, you're past it. If it's 30, you're past it. And I would then be speaking to your school to see, because you're the first person I've heard who's had this issue. That doesn't mean that it's not an issue. It just means that you're the first one I've seen. Talk to your school and see if they have any insights as to what's going on with your particular case. But I could see a situation where they say, hey, the ban went into effect December whatever, and the benefits hold was announced, I think, the first week of January, if I remember right, and that we're not going to process a single thing after that date. That would not surprise me that has happened. And if so, then I think you're still within your 60-day grace period after your program ended, because you graduate in December. You should talk to your school about the potential of getting a new I-20 issued to at least maintain your status in the U.S.
Right. I believe the premium processing is a 30-day notice.
Okay. So
and we have seen on social media here and there people talking about upgrading to premium because they're not hearing back. But to your point, Mike, I'm not sure if that is within the window of this recent new announcement, or is there something else going on?
Yeah, so 30 business days from December. I bet we're still past that.
Okay.
You know, unless it was like the very last week of December. And if it were me and I'm seeing other people who are not getting it, then I would not be spending my money to upgrade. Yeah. I would hold on to my money.
Okay, Sophie, I hope that helps.
I think that you want to use that money to pay for your CPT program.
Right. There was another question about South Korean applications. Sharon, I believe it's Sharon. Not particularly sure if your question is something specific or just general, whether or not there are any issues with visa petitions for Korean nurses. But I do not believe South Korea is listed on any of these lists currently.
No.
Good to go.
Yep.
Good to go. Okay.
Status quo for you.
Okay. So, folks, before we move over to the Visa Bulletin side, are there any other comments or thoughts that you both want to share, Mike and Mike?
I'm sad about how people are being, jerked back and forth all the time. It's like you have to go, on the internet every day to find out what the new situation is with your case, and it's jarring and upsetting, and we totally get it. And that's why we have, these webinars with Mike, so we can try and get the most up-to-date information we can. And we try and work with you to put you in a situation that's going to keep your status safe and, get you in the process towards, getting your ultimate goal in immigration, which oftentimes is the green card. But I think Roxy said it best earlier is, you got to be patient. And, this is never a good process. Right now, it's particularly loathsome because of the current administration. But, we're going to be there to help support you. Mike and his team, are going to help support you. So just be patient, and by God, we're hoping for a new Congress next year that might actually rein some of this nonsense in. We'll see.
Agreed. Mike Hammond, there was a question regarding Faith asked a question way earlier about potential for a nurse visa. Do you know anything about this?
There have been attempts. We had a nurse visa. It was called the H-1A. It ended in 1988 or 89.
Last century.
So a few years ago. And then there were some holdovers for a few years. I think the program, so there was some grandfathering in of programs. I think it completely 100% ended by maybe 94, somewhere in that neighborhood. There have been lots of efforts to revive the program. It has never been successful. I think retrogression relief has a better chance of success than recreating the H-1A program. So okay. I don't see that happening.
And on that note too, Mike, why don't we just take a second to get the H-1B out of everybody's mouth? Because that is never happening for a nurse. Not right now, it's not.
Yeah, so right now, to get an H-1B for anyone who's overseas, no matter your occupation, your employer needs to pay an additional $100,000 in order to just try to get you approved. So that has basically dried up for nurses, med techs, PTs, OTs, software engineers, etc. Basically everybody aside from a few docs and a few high-end exec-like level individuals and doing some real crazy AI cybersecurity stuff. So for the most part, it's just simply ended it. They created an exception policy and implemented rules. And I know that our office started filing them in October when they introduced it, and none have been adjudicated yet. No approvals, no denials, no nothing. Big news today, a group of, I believe, 100 congressmen wrote to, I think, Secretary Noem about the fact that there's been no exemptions issued. Whether that provides any relief, I have no idea, but it did make the headlines today, just today. Even if the $100,000 was gone, the number of H-1Bs available for nurses is extremely limited. We talk about it a lot. It gets a lot of news, but the reality is there's not very many that meet the qualification, because you have to demonstrate that the job you're going to requires a BSN. And in all 50 states, the standard for nurse is an associate's degree. There are certain positions that will meet the standard. There are a few magnet hospitals where they will only hire BSN nurses. There are certain specialties that depending on the institution might, but it's a very small number. So even before the $100,000 came into effect, the number was small. To put it in a little bit of perspective, not saying my office has a cornerstone on H1s by any stretch of the imagination. However, in 2024, we filed about 5,000 Eb-3 cases for RNs, and we filed about 60 or 70 H-1Bs for RNs.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
And how many since the $100,000?
Zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero.
So we do
any
still
occupation. I mean, I'm personally aware of a couple of attorneys that have filed a couple doctor cases that paid the 100. And in my entire firm, I'm in a firm with 70 immigration attorneys, all doing corporate immigration work. And I think we've had 2 out of our entire firm that have filed paying the $100,000. One was some AI guru, and the other person was like the CFO or something. So they're just nobody's spending $100,000 for a worker. It's just ridiculous. Now, one other comment about the $100,000. There are 4 pending lawsuits in the U.S. trying to strike down the $100,000. One filed by the Chamber of Commerce, another by a group of states, like 30-some states banded together, another that was joined by a nurses union, and I forget, to be honest, who the fourth one is. But there are 4 pending lawsuits where we might get some relief, but we don't have relief today. And the relief would not be quick because it would go through appeals. And so today, the H-1 is simply not a legitimate option, sadly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, because I do see people talking about H-1B a lot especially on like the new grad chats and so on. So just for any new grad out there listening, it's really, as they're just saying, extremely difficult to achieve that. Of course, the good news is we are still filing Eb-3 visas, petitions for new grads and for consular process. There's also the TN option for those who are Canadian or Mexican citizens, and the E3 for those who are Australian citizens. So keep that in mind if that's one of the scenarios that you're in. Any other comments, guys, before we go to the Visa Bulletin?
Nope.
Okay. All righty, let's do it. Let's get to this final action date. You want to start there, or you want to start with dates for filing, Mike?
Start with whatever slide you're on.
All right, let's do it. This is February.
Yes, and I have not seen the March one yet. I don't think it came out today. So let's talk about final action date chart. If you are overseas, this chart is the most important chart for you because it says that you can go to your final interview and be approved for an immigrant visa and then come into the U.S. Okay. So most important chart for you. There's a couple things that I think is very relevant about this final action date chart for February. First of all, the Eb-3 all other category moved up 5 weeks, all the way to June 1st, 2023. And the Philippines also moved up 5 weeks as well. Eb-2 categories all stayed the same, and every other country, China, India, Mexico, all stayed the same. I mean, Mexico moved as well, but all of India and all of China stayed the same. So clearly, the fact that they moved some up indicates that they believe that there's a visa availability earlier in the year than what they expected. If you are in the U.S., final action date means that your 485 can be adjudicated. And adjudicated can mean one of 3 things. It can mean that you're approved. They can just send you an approval notice. Number 2, they could issue you an RFE. We are seeing RFEs, or requests for evidence, for people who were filed several years ago where the vaccination charts have changed. And so we're asking for new medical exams. We're seeing them for people who want to verify that you still have the same employer. And then the third thing they can do is they can schedule you for an interview. They keep claiming publicly that the number of interviews they're doing is gone up significantly. They're not saying they're interviewing everyone, but they're saying they're interviewing a significant number of people. In my opinion, that's not true. I'm still seeing interviews very rarely. I would say all year, I think I've had 2 interviews, and one of them had some minor criminal stuff when they were in college here. So I expected an interview for them. The other one had gotten married like 2 weeks before they filed their 485. So I expected an interview for them too. So I'm not seeing yet any significant increase in interviews. So final action date chart, good news for February. We're excited to see what's going to happen with March, but a 5-week movement is pretty big.
Mike, can you put this in context of the travel ban 39 country list and what that means for consular versus onshore folks?
It's possible that they baked that in, that 38% number out of the travel ban, and that's why we move forward 5 weeks. That's most of us are believing that's probably what happened.
I mean, specific. So it wasn't clear. I mean, if you're from a country on the travel ban, earlier we talked about.
To be honest, this chart means nothing now because you can't go.
Right. So if you had an interview, you would want to not go to that interview if you were on that.
Cancel the interview.
But if you're an onshore person,
then if you're from the travel ban, this means nothing to you either.
Okay.
Because it just means your case is still on pause until they decide to reopen it. But they're not going to deny your case right now. They're just not going to take any action.
And if it's a country on the immigration pause list?
On the 75, it means still go to your interview. You just will not be adjudicated. You will get a 221G until they finish processing your case. And if you're in the U.S., it means nothing.
Okay, great. Thank you. How about dates for filing?
Okay, so the date for filing chart for people who are offshore, in theory, it means that the NVC can issue your fee bill, take your documents, and DQ you. Well, we all know that the NVC has not really been following that rule forever. And when they have, it's been very inconsistent. So for the most part, the date for filing chart means nothing. If, however, you happen to be someone who is now current on the date for filing chart and you don't have a fee bill issued yet, we can request a fee bill, but I haven't seen anybody like that. But in theory, that could happen. For people in the U.S., the date for filing chart means more because it means, generally speaking, that you can now file your 485. Now, I say that with a caveat because the Department of State issues the Visa Bulletin every month. So we're getting ready to have the March Bulletin. About 1 to 2 days after the Department of State issues the Visa Bulletin, the USCIS posts on their website whether they will honor the final action date chart or the date for filing chart for this coming month's I-485 filings. So for February, we got to use the date for filing chart for filing 485s. We don't know what we're going to get for March. So they may say, no, we're not going to honor the date for filing chart. We're only going to honor the final action date chart because we have enough 485s in queue where we are comfortable that that's as much workload as we can get. And they kind of cut the spigot off and kind of close the valve and say, we don't want any more. And we just don't know. And again, it's usually 1 or 2 days after the Visa Bulletin's issued. But assuming they honor the date for filing chart, then that means that you can file your 485.
Okay, great. And in this case, for those onshore, we would file your 485 and your I-765 for your upcoming EAD. The travel documents would be something you would talk to Mike and his team about, depending on the country you're from. Correct, Mike?
Yeah, if you're from one of the ban lists, there's no reason to pay for a travel document because you're not going to get back. It's not going to be issued to start with, but when it does get issued, you run a risk of not getting back. And the filing fees for the travel document is, I think, $630 per person, which means you are carrying around a $630 piece of paper that has no value because you can't use it. So yeah, I'm happy to mail you a document, a little postcard that just says $630 on it. And you can carry that around and save your $630. So, you know, and then for other people who are like, hey, let's say you're not on one of the lists. Let's say the lady who asked the question earlier is from South Korea. The question of do you want a travel document is a personal question. Do you want one? Are you going to travel internationally? Do you maybe have parents who are older and maybe you don't plan on travel, but maybe you're going to if somebody gets sick. Maybe then you want a travel document and it's worth your $630. But maybe you don't, and that's a personal choice you're going to make as to whether you want to have one or not.
Great.
Mike, do you have any current feeling on how long it takes to adjudicate the I-765 and the I-485?
Well, let me tell you the bad news first. The I-485s, the USCIS is quoting 30 months.
Wow, 30.
That's what they're quoting. Most of the adjudications we're seeing right now are people who filed in 2020 and 21 when the dates were still current. Now, are they being processed now only because that's how long it took to process? The answer is no, because what happens is the dates retrogressed. So they weren't eligible to be adjudicated. So we look at it and go, well, you've been pending since 2021. Well, that doesn't mean it's really taken 5 years. It does mean that, but it wasn't in process for 5 years. So it's hard to say the overall processing time, but I'm telling people I think at least 12 to 18 months.
Thank you.
I don't think there should be any reasonable expectation of processing faster than 12 to 18 months for a 45. Because if I go back to when things were processing normally, that's about the time frame we had on those. And if they require interviews, it's going to take longer because it always did. EAD's better. We're seeing a lot of EADs issued in about 4 months. We have been asking for expedites for all healthcare worker EADs, simply as a matter of routine. Back during COVID, they issued them for us all the time. Right now, we don't really know what's happening, because if they issue us one, because they don't give us an answer. We don't get it told, okay, yes or no. Either gets processed or doesn't. Would it have gotten processed anyway without that? I don't know. So, that's really not terribly helpful. Travel documents, if you're from a country where they issue them both together, what they call combo cards, then we're seeing at the same time. If you're from a country that only gets a single entry and so you get a separate document, we're seeing longer, 6-7 months to get travel documents. So it's varying quite a bit.
And that's a good question, Mike, especially important for those who are waiting on their I-485 adjudication, that it could possibly take longer than 12 to 18 months, and then making sure that you're remaining in visa status while that happens. Lots to consider. Before we go to the remainder of the questions, Mike's regarding the Visa Bulletin, Mike Hammond, do you have any thoughts on where the Visa Bulletin may go for the remainder of the year? That's always a question we get. Certainly, you mentioned that the bulletin may have moved in in February, potentially because of the freeing up of some space for visas, because of things like the immigration freeze and travel bans. But what say you? Are there any rumblings and secrets you know about?
Well, there's no secrets I know about. But I always believe that the date for filing chart is a predictor as to where the final action date chart will go to. So when the date for filing chart says October 1st, 2023, then I fully expect that by the end of this fiscal year, which is September, I fully expect the chart to reach the final action date chart to move from June 1st to October 1st. So that's a movement of what, 4 extra months?
June. Yeah, five months.
I count on my fingers. I got 4. So I got 4 months kind of time frame. Okay. Anytime the date for filing chart moves forward, I view that as a positive for what's to come as a predictor. Okay. It's not always perfect, but it's a pretty good predictor. So if you're sitting there with a date of anything this summer and you're overseas, I think they're going to get to you.
Okay. All right. This is good. we do have a few questions, Mike Conley. Maybe we should tackle those, and then we can try to, if we had a few more minutes, talk about our option or our opportunities.
Yeah, let's do the questions. Those are more
yeah.
important.
Yeah. So my priority date is current, but my employer refused to file my I-485 because I'm from a banned country. Mike, this is not a VEMA or Valley nurse. I can tell you that. But what would you say to that?
Well, I think that is a reasonable answer that they may take, particularly if they're the ones who are spending the money to do it, because you do not gain a benefit from it because your EAD will not be processed. And if, for example, let's say you're a med tech and you're on an H1, they may just be as happy to keep you on an H1 until such time as that ban is released. I do not think there is any harm in filing the 45. They will be accepted. They are being receipted in. They're simply not being processed. So if it's your money, then it's probably worth talking to your employer about, hey, is there a way to go ahead and file this? But if it's their money, I could see that. It would not surprise me for employers to take that position, because most employers like to spend money for things that provide benefit to you and them. And that does not provide any benefit to them and potentially no benefit to you. So not surprised.
Mike, can I ask a caveat question to that?
Yeah.
In normal times, we've seen people file an I-485 and then they wait, and then 6 months passes, and then they're eligible for porting their case to a new employer. So in this case, this person's not being given that opportunity, but it begs the question, if you're from a banned country and they're not even processing your I-485, would you even be eligible to port?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think you'd be able to port. Here's why. You wouldn't have an EAD card, and you wouldn't be able to get a new H1. So how would you work for the new employer?
Mm-hmm.
You already have a 45, so you couldn't get a TN. You couldn't get an E3. You couldn't get an O. So most of the visa categories we would look at as potential options, you in theory should not be eligible for a new CPT because you already have a 45 filed. So there might be quite a few reasons why you wouldn't. I also don't know your circumstances, obviously, but if you happen to be on a TN or happen to be on an O, that'd be another reason why they wouldn't want to file your 45. So there might be a lot of legit reasons.
Would you give counsel to somebody who's on CPT from a banned country to not file their I-485 and just stay on CPT until the ban is lifted?
I think it depends on whether they're going to have to change programs. So if they're where they're running out the end of the program, they have to go to a new program, maybe, because the school may say, the new school that they're going to go to may say, I'm not going to issue a new I-20 because you're not really an F1 student anymore. You've already indicated intent to emigrate and you're current by virtue of filing a 45. However, if you're already on an I-20 and you got a couple years left on the I-20, I probably wouldn't be as concerned. So, and some of it has to do with the amount of risk the individual has. Oftentimes individuals are less risk, more risk averse or less risk averse as to what they feel comfortable with, and so I think you got to kind of talk through those options and look and go, what makes most sense for you? Because the idea is most employers, their primary concerns are, can you keep working? Okay. And can you stay legal? Those are their two concerns. Your concern as an individual may honestly be less about working today. You may want to ultimately go, I just really want this green card. And if I have to be off work for a little while, that's okay. I don't know. But that may be certainly a relevant factor. So, but yeah, I do not think that what the employer is doing is patently unreasonable. I think that's a not an unusual scenario.
But there's no difference between filing an I-485 now, if you're on the ban list, and filing one when the ban's lifted.
That's correct. That's correct.
And what it
Our
actually
date
might
does
allow
not
you
go
to
away.
do is to continue in your CPT program, or even get into a new CPT program if you haven't filed that I-485.
That might be the factor. Yes.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. We are at the hour. I think we'll take one or two more questions if that's okay, and then we'll head out. We had a question about the visa screen and the I-140 timing wise, just visa screen. Can you give us a quick guide right now, Mike Hammond?
Sure. If you are overseas, you need the visa screen before you go to your interview. You do not need it to file your I-140. You do not need it to be DQ'd. You simply need it before you go to your interview. If you are in the US, you have to have your visa screen before you file your I-485. You cannot file your I-485 if you do not have your visa screen. So depending on where you're at is what answer you need for your visa screen. Keep in mind, visa screens are valid for 5 years and can be renewed if for some reason something takes longer than 5 years.
And very quickly, can you tell us the approval wait time or estimate for I-140s right now?
Yeah, regular, we're 22 months.
22 months to about 22 months for an I-140 approval. And your
I got one
screen,
in 16 months just recently.
Yay.
Very
and your
impressed me.
so your visa screen will not be needed till after that. So for the person who asked about that, keep that in mind. Earlier there was a question about an I-20. Just can one of you please just explain what an I-20 is and why it acts as an EAD?
Well, an I-20 is a document that goes along with being a student. It'll say what program you're in. It'll say how long your program's expected to last. They're issued by schools. They're not issued by the USCIS. For an I-20 to act for an EAD card or a work card are what are called CPT I-20s. And they'll have on the back a notation that will say you are eligible to work for such and such employer for full-time, part-time, whatever the arrangements are for a period of time for that semester, and then you get it renewed. If you're doing OPT or STEM OPT, your school will notate on the back of the I-20 that you're eligible for that. And I think they use the phrase, we recommend it. And then that goes to the USCIS for processing of the actual EAD.
The actual card. Okay.
Correct,
Thank you.
the actual card.
Let's see. Last question is about a vacancy. Mike Conley, pediatric vacancy for RNs.
Yeah. If you're experienced, we do have some opportunities for pediatric RNs. If you're a new grad, that's a big ask. So it just kind of depends on your own certain situation. Yeah, so that's that with pediatric.
Okay. One more question slid in from a VIMA nurse. Hello, how are you? We still haven't had an approval of your I-140, and it is from August of 2024. So what's the 22 months mark on that? Doing math in my head here.
22 months would be June 2026. So you're getting close.
Okay, so your I-140 hopefully will be approved soon. Just keep checking in with me. You're always welcome to email me or to email, of course, the team at CIP through the Envoy portal. Okay, any other comments or thoughts, Mike Conley, about any of these questions that were raised?
No, but I appreciate people joining us today. We do have opportunities for new grads in a direct observation unit, which leads to ICU. So Kennedy, California, that's the answer to that. Yeah, thank you all for being here. We appreciate that. We are currently hiring new grads for 3 different programs we have, one in New Mexico and 2 in Southern California. So if you or any friends are ready to get going, start your career and get a case filed, we can help you out with that right away. And we're hiring consular process nurses every day and filing cases for them. So, don't give up hope. If your dream is to, live and work in the United States and get a green card and have a career and your life here, it can happen, and it does happen. If you're a new grad, don't give up hope. We can put you in a situation that can keep you in status and get a case filed for you. We understand that it's a nightmare right now. And God willing, it gets better. But in the meantime, we're here and we keep doing what we do, and we work with great attorneys like Mike and his team to make sure that everything's done on the up and up for you.
Yeah, thank you. And Mike Hammond, any last comments before we let you go today?
No, I'd just say to continue to monitor information. There is, however, a lot of bad information out there, so don't believe everything you read or everything you see. Because I know there's AI pictures of me with a full head of hair. That's not real. That's fake. It's on a dating app, but it's not real, man. It's total fake. So be careful what you see out there. And if you see something you're concerned about, how it affects you or how it might, email Roxy, email us, so that we can make sure that you have the best information. Okay?
Yeah. Please do reach out, careers@vmstaffing.com. Obviously through our websites. We also have contact us pages, and you can certainly reach out through social media as well. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. It was a really great webinar. This is a really confusing topic for everyone. Like you just said, things change a lot. So definitely keep asking the questions and keep coming back, and we're happy to help. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Vima Staffing Partners signing off. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Roxy. Bye-bye.